Hello, my name is James Davis from upad.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm joined by Ray Boulger from Charcol Mortgage Brokers, and I just wanted to touch on Ray about tenants on housing benefit. There's several properties I let out myself with tenants that are on housing benefit. They've worked well for me. But I think there's various organisations and noise of recent where they're sort of almost forcing landlords to not say no DSS or no housing benefits. What's your view on this, in particular from a lender's perspective, that landlords have finance arranged through?
Well, most lenders did used to include a clause in their rental agreement saying that the property had to be let on an AST, right. And in many cases, DSS tenants weren't allowed. That has been steadily changing, partly as a result of the publicity we've seen on this sort of situation over the last year or two. So more landlords will now have the option to accept DSS tenants if they choose to. And I suspect a number of landlords are probably not even aware that that is a condition in the mortgage. So maybe letting to a DSS tenant when, technically speaking, they were in breach of their mortgage contract. The view I take is that it's up to a landlord to decide what type of tenants they will accept. Some landlords will say, I don't want children, I don't want pets. And if they decide to say, because they've had a bad experience of a DSS tenant, they don't want the DSS tenants, then that ought to be their choice. But I think to just have a blanket decision saying you won't do DSS is not the right approach. You should only do that if your experience shows that DSS tenants in your area means that there's a much higher arrears rate. So in the same way that lenders will decide who to lend to based on a client's credit record, if landlords are finding they have an abnormally bad experience with DSS tenants, I can understand why they may say no DSS. But as you point out, there are lots of DSS tenants who are going to be just as good tenants as non-DSS. And of course, some tenants will start off being not DSS and will become DSS. Bearing in mind it is the landlord's asset, I think the landlord should have the choice, but I think they should make that choice responsibly.
And I think one of the big things for me is more about at the end of the tenancy, if rent payments have stopped because the tenant needed to provide paperwork to the local council and the case is suspended. As a landlord, you have to go through the entire process, get bailiff notice, and that takes months, especially in today's marketplace. It's almost discouraging then to go down the housing benefit route sometimes because you can be without rent and somebody residing in your property and taking you months to be able to get the keys back.
Yeah, and of course the changes to universal credit have caused some problems as well. So I think the government has to take responsibility for making some of the changes that are actually adversely impacting landlords. And then if landlords react by saying we don't want DSS, they can't really complain if they've caused the problem.
Yeah, that's different. Ray, very good to catch up with you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us and look forward to watching another video with you soon. All the best.